Alright, so I'm over here in Excel. I've downloaded some data from the internet. I'm going to do a quick data analysis project on it in Python. So I want to get some of that data into the Python file. Now, a couple different ways we can normally go about doing this. The first most common suggestion you'll see is to use pd.read or something similar, to where basically Python will go into the Excel file, read the data, and then move it into Python. The issue there is that you have to maintain the Excel file on your computer. This is downloaded into the downloads folder. Downloads folder will be cleared out at some point. I don't particularly want to save this Excel file onto my computer, so that's not going to be a good way to go about it. Second one is to paste it into an AI or something like that. And I found that currently that's not a good way to do it. It'll skip some numbers in a long data set. Sometimes it won't like to type out all of the numbers in a long data set, so not ideal there. So what would be nice is if we could copy this and paste it into Python. If there was a tool out there online that would sort of do that process automatically. Don't know that one exists currently, so I was looking at how do we do this in a quick and efficient manner. So I'm going to go over the process that I used here. So the first step over here on the Excel file, we're going to create two blank columns next to the data we want. Here I want the weight in column E, so I'm going to create them here next to column E. Now this F column, we're going to leave this blank. We're going to be using this later to add commas after every single number. And then G here, we're going to use it to indicate on which places a line break should occur. So to do that, we need to do a formula. We'll do equals row. We'll click on the data on that line. That'll return the row number in Excel for that given data set. So this is 6 here. And if we were to go all the way down, you see it's going to do 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. We want this to be 1, so we're going to minus 5. Again, we'll extend that down. Now, we want it to indicate the same number every 10th row. And so to do that, we'll do the modulo feature. We'll do that in Excel by just wrapping it in a mod function. And then the second parameter will be that number 10. We hit equals there, send it down, you'll see every 10th row is going to be 0. So now we can get rid of all the other ones by adding an if statement on the front of it. If this equals a number, then just delete it. Otherwise, use whatever number we want here. And so I'm going to use negative 100,000. That's a pretty safe number. It's not in my data set, but I want to make sure I use a number that's not in my data set because we are going to be using this to find and replace later on. So if negative 100,000 is in your data set, you want to find a different number. But I don't have that number in there, so we can go ahead and click on that. Send that all the way down. I'll get rid of the decimals. And now we're ready to paste, copy and paste. So I'll hold down Shift, go over, and then hold down Shift Control, go down arrow, and I'll copy with Control C. Now we're ready to move it over into the Python file. So we'll come over here, paste it in. Now you see the problem here, right? I've got 504 data and it's taking up 504 lines. This is a lot. We don't want to be scrolling through this. So we want it to be in a better formatted way. And so we're going to work to do that here. Now if you just wanted to get it into a list, you could just not do the negative 100,000 and say up here, give it a name, test list. At the end here, we would say close that off, and then we could replace all of these spaces with a comma. So I'll highlight next the space right there, hold down Control H, put a comma there. All right, and if you were comfortable with 504 rows, that's where it could end. You just wouldn't bring over that third column. But I'm not, so what we're going to do next is get this formatted in a better way. So what we're going to do is we need to put a comma on the end of the negative 100,000. Control H. I will copy the value there, put it into replace, and then add a comma. Now it's in a list. So next I'll come to the bottom and I want to print the test list. I'll run it. You can see that prints out the list there. So we'll copy this list that created in the terminal, and I'll paste it over the data up here that we created. I want to maintain the name, and there we go. Now you can see the problem here, right? The first time we had it going down really far. The second time here we've got it going from left to right really far. We want a nice balance where we can count it. So in order to do that, the first step here, get rid of all of the line breaks. So we're going to just come over here to the left, backspace, put this all on one line. There we go. Check in there, looks good, okay. Next, what we want to do is we want to come to the 100,000 here, and we want to highlight beginning with the as far right as we can go before hitting that next number, and as far left as we can go before hitting that comma. So we'll highlight that, Control H, and we'll say instead of anything here, we'll hold down the Shift button and hit Enter on the keyboard. We'll replace that, and you can see that indentured our data rows of 10. So we now know every row is going to have 10 values. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Down here you can see it's a little bit of a different length, but you can see that's just because the numbers aren't as long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so that enables us to not only have the data in here so we no longer have to save the Excel file, but now we can really quickly look at this and determine how many numbers are in there. We've got rows beginning with 2 going down to 51, so that's going to be 50 rows of 10, that would be 500, and then 4 down here would give us 504. We could test that by saying print the length of test list. Run that again, and you can see right down here at the bottom 504. So it's a nice easy way to count without having to run the code. So I'm bringing in the tickers now with letters. You can see we have a bit of a different issue here. We have to wrap these in quotation marks. With the numbers we don't have to do that. And so how we're going to overcome this issue, first we'll hit Control H to open up Find and Replace. You'll see here this is what you're going to have to enter. We'll then hit the Use Regular Expression, so it indicates Alt plus R on the keyboard. Now that highlights everything, but we don't want everything to be replaced. So what we'll do is we'll highlight beginning with the first value all the way down to the last value. Once we've selected that, we'll come up back to Find and Replace. We'll click on the button Find in Selection, indicates it's Alt plus L on the keyboard. That'll highlight just those values. We can hit Replace All, and that'll put strings around all those values. A couple other issues here, on my end at least. The first is just sort of cleanup of these things. The way it came in, the ticker was brk.b, and so you can see it created 2 strings inside of there. So the only way to really fix this is just manually cleaning it. The other issue though is that with the negative 100,000 that we were using to indicate when we wanted the line break, with this new string, the negative is not going to work. It's going to throw an error. So a couple different ways we can do this. The first, what I recommend is when you're doing the Excel file, instead of using negative 100,000, use something like break or some sort of textual indication that this is where it needs to break. And then when we do the process of putting strings around everything, it'll put strings around it, won't have a negative. But since I'm already here, we can also overcome this by coming up to Find and Replace, and we will keep it exactly the same, except we'll remove the negative and we'll replace all. After doing some minor cleanup on the data, we'll run this. And we can see we've got a list of all of those, and so now we're ready to continue with the process.